I hear people all the time, they're like, oh, like, no one's booking this service, no one's doing that. And I'm like, well, how many people are going to that page? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, so let's look at your analytics.
Welcome to the Process to Profit podcast, where we find out about the key processes and productivity techniques that drive successful service-based businesses. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale, join us as we uncover practical strategies to streamline your operations and help you make more money by boosting your profitability. Let's get started. My guest today is Jess Freeman. Jess, the creative force behind the award-winning Jess Creatives, is also an accomplished author and a dedicated wife and mom. Passionate about transforming businesses into unique and vibrant online entities, Jess uses her experience to help professionals attract better clients and stand out in the digital world. Living in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia with her husband and daughter, you can find Jess sipping her favorite Diet Dr. Pepper and championing causes closest to her heart.
Good.
Jess, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to dig in today. You and I have worked together a little bit in the past, so I'm excited to dig in a little bit deeper. Why don't we start by you telling everyone kind of more in depth who you are, who you help, where you come from, all of those fun things.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I run Jess Creative. So I do web design and SEO for online business owners. And I particularly work with service-based business owners, especially those in the health and wellness field. And I love doing websites. I've always been a designer. It's what I decided to do in high school and just never changed my mind. But then as I kind of got into web design and running my own business, I found that websites are so important for business owners. You know, it gives us a lot of legitimacy and reputation. It helps save time. And I really love it because I know so many business owners are feeling burnt out on social media. And I find that really high impact websites give us more capacity to spend more time doing things we love, spending time with clients, and relying less on social media. Because when you combine a very high impact website and SEO, it can do more of the heavy lifting for you in your business, and you don't have to rely quite as much on social media. So I do websites, I do SEO. If you just want SEO, I do a lot with analytics, I do consulting. So I can nerd out about all the things, basically.
We love to nerd out on this podcast,
We do,
so I'm
yeah.
happy to have someone to nerd out here.
Yes.
So, as someone who has DIY'd their website, and it's the best. I did the best that I could with the budget that I had, but it's not the best at sort of converting people. So, why do you think some websites sort of struggle to turn visitors into customers? What are some common mistakes that you see business owners making on their website to actually convert customers that are actually finding their website but then not converting into buyers?
Yeah. So there's a few things that can happen. And honestly, this doesn't just happen to DIYers. This can happen to people who have professionally done websites also. So anybody who's DIY, like there's no shame in that. Like I always say, we all have different budgets. We have different timelines of when we're ready to invest. So I'm like a no shame type of designer. It's fine if you've DIY'd. The
Well,
first,
thank you.
the first thing I would say is messaging. If we come to your website and it's like, I'm not entirely sure what you do, like, especially in the types of businesses that can have a few different meanings or like a few different approaches, or you know what I mean? Like, with virtual assistants who do, some VAs specialize in this thing and some do this and some do everything. And if the messaging isn't super clear about what you do and why it's beneficial, people aren't sold on that. And I'm not saying I'm very, very anti like sleazy marketing and sleazy language. Like, I'm not saying you need to have really like abrasive headlines or anything.
Buy now or something terrible is going to
Yes, or
happen.
we're not about that. But very, very clear messaging is very important. And then kind of to go along with that, I would say also, if we can't connect with you, because in this online business space, there's a bunch of us. I know
Hmm.
sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but there are. And we have our pick of the litter when it comes to web designers and virtual assistants. And so we really want to connect with you and feel like Lauren is the type of person I want to work with. She is my vibe. I can totally work with her. I trust her with everything. So showing your personality is also going to help connect. I mean, I even relate it to, like, when we go to the doctor. I mean, how many doctors have we been through that you go and you leave and you're like, "I'm never going back to see her." Like, her bedside manner was awful. She was not friendly. And then you'd go try another one and you're like, "Still not my cup of tea." Like, what is wrong? So, really, we want to connect with people because people like to work with people, not logos. And
Yeah.
we really want to make sure we're connecting with that audience. And part of how we do that is just showing our personality and not being too caught up in, like, I'm a professional and this is what I do. And, it's like a resume. No, we need to connect with people. And then I would also say, from like a technical perspective, slow websites. Slow websites and disorganized websites are the two biggest killers for conversion because we are a very, very impatient society. And so, I mean, there's research out there that people will leave a website if it doesn't load within like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And so making sure it is very, very quick and you have everything optimized and it's running smoothly and that it is easy to navigate. I recently did a bunch of market research calls. I talked to 50 different people. Lauren was one of them. And one of the almost I would say probably the number one thing that came up was I want my website to be easy to navigate because I hate going to websites that are confusing and hard to navigate because there are so many websites out there that are just, frankly, a hot mess.
Convoluted and difficult to find what you want.
Yes.
You just want this one quick thing.
Yeah, you're like, where is this information? Like, I don't even know. There's pop-ups and too many buttons, and you're trying to get people to go to your Instagram and your Facebook group and your Pinterest and download this book and you're like, I just want to hire this person and they're sending me in all these different directions. So,
They're making it so difficult to just give them some money.
yeah, like, how can I pay you? Make it easier. So I would say from a technical perspective, those are the other two big things that are really, really hurting your conversions.
Yeah, my site speed is not the best, so I'm feeling that right now. But it's funny you mentioned doctors. I am very open about the fact that I actually was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2012, and it was benign, and I've since had it removed, so yay. But when I first got diagnosed, I went to a specialist in Austin where I was living because he was like the closest person that specialized in that
Yeah.
thing. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I know it's a brain tumor, but it's not a big deal." And I was like, "Excuse you,
I'm
it is a
sorry.
brain tumor. It is a big deal." I never went back to that doctor
No, you're
because,
like,
like, you don't tell me that a brain tumor is not a big.
no.
You may see this every day, but this is like brand new information for me. So you do
Mm-hmm.
not tell me that it is not a big deal. So
Yeah, no.
same thing, I think, with your service providers. They shouldn't be telling you that your website is not a big deal.
No,
Probably
no. Or being like, oh, it's fine, your client process, like, it doesn't matter. Or like, yeah, like,
right.
no. You want someone that connects and cares about your business.
Yes. Yeah, my I keep struggling with website speed on my website, so I'm hearing you on that one. It's not an easy thing to fix on your own, so
It's
still
not.
working on that one. So, what are three easy sort of small ways that business owners can make their website easier to find on Google? Because everyone talks about SEO, everyone
Mm-hmm.
talks about, searches and discoverability and getting away from the social media hamster wheel, which I would love to do. So, how do we as business owners sort of make our websites easier to find? How do we know what people are searching for? How do we kind of figure that out so we can back away from the social media black hole?
Yes, let's do it. Okay, so the first thing, I'll start kind of with the keywords because that is the very crucial part of the SEO. And especially if someone is listening and they're like, I do not understand it. Like, I hear SEO, my eyes glaze over. We are very simply just putting the words that people are typing into Google that you want to be associated with on your website. So like when you are searching for like pizza restaurants near me, you want to obviously you're trying to find those pizza restaurants, and those restaurants hopefully have optimized websites that show up with your city, state, and like pizza. And so we need to figure out what are people searching as it relates to your business and your services. This is often something that people mess up because they will use keywords that they have not researched, and they think, "Oh, like, yeah, this is what people search, so I'm just gonna use it." So, for example, I most commonly call myself a website designer. Sometimes I also call myself a website strategist because there's a lot of strategy baked into what I do. No one is searching website strategist. It's not what they search.
Yep.
And so I would be doing myself a disservice if I used that key phrase on my website, because then it's not going to show up in search when people are searching for website designer. So we need to do the keyword research before you even start doing anything on the website. That is step one. There are lots of tools out there. Keysearch.io, Ahrefs, Ahrefs, has a free keyword generator. It's a keyword search tool. It's not a generator. I don't know why they call it that, but they have a free one. There's also Uber Suggest, which I don't love. I will say, as a disclaimer, lots of these tools have some discrepancies between the numbers that they show. So it's really best to just like choose one and stick to it. And I've used Ahrefs the longest, but I recently switched to Key Search,
Mhm.
frankly, because it was a lot cheaper and the data was pretty close, it was pretty similar, so I felt good using it. But you want to go to one of these tools and start researching the phrases or the terms that you want to show up for. So web designer, system strategist, virtual
People are not
assistant.
searching for system
Yeah,
strategists.
like,
I learned that. So
what?
time management, like,
Yes.
productivity, those are the things
Mhm.
that people are
Yes.
searching for. Yeah.
And Lord, that is like a really great point, because people, when I do like SEO workshops and stuff, people are like, well, no one's like, I did my search for like my title and it's not showing up. My favorite tip is to go to ChatGPT, give it like your homepage copy or your sales page copy and say like, based on this, give me keyword ideas. And then take that into whatever keyword tool and research that. Now, sometimes ChatGPT will give you really long ones or like kind of weird words. So use it as
It's
kind of,
ChatGPT after
yeah,
all.
and so you don't have to, like, you may want to tweak some of the words, leave off some of the words, like whatever. But we want to find those keywords. That's step number one. Then the second thing we want to do, often people go into the back end of their website. They have Yoast, SEO, Rank Math, like whatever. If you're not on WordPress, you still have SEO settings. It's usually just under like page settings or something. And they're like, okay, like I have my keywords, da 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 da, here you go. And then that's it. The problem is that Google wants to also see those words on the front of your website as well.
Oh,
Because
okay.
back in the day, people, before Google got really smart, people would be like, oh, if I optimize my website for best laptop ever, and then I show up at the top of Google for that search, they come to my website and it's actually that I'm selling cupcakes or something. Like, that's kind of a bad example because those are completely unrelated, but they would try to use some other term that was really not competitive, was really high search, and
Hmm.
so like, ooh, I can like kind of clickbait.
Capitalize
Yeah,
on it. Yeah.
and get people on my site. And so Google has definitely cracked down on that and fixed that. So they want to see that term, like web designer, system strategist, virtual assistant, whatever it is, on that page, because they are looking for context and to see like, okay, is Lauren actually about time management or is she trying to trick us? So they want to see
I
that.
am very sneaky that way.
I assumed.
Mhm.
So they want to see it, and more than just once. We don't want to just use it one time, but we also don't want to overdo it. Like, it doesn't need to be like, if you need help with time management, I am a time management coach who helps you with time management, and I will help with your time and help you manage it.
Are
Like,
you saying that's not how I should talk? That's not how I naturally talk?
sorry, Lauren, no.
Shoot.
So we want to sound normal, but try to include it. So often, one of the easy, like, here's a like little quick sub tip. I often see, like on the homepage, about halfway down, it's like our services, and then like 2 or 3 boxes with like, here's my VIP days, here's my group program, whatever. That's a great place to put your keyword. Our
Mm.
time management services, our web design services, like anything like that. That's an easy way to just add another layer of adding that keyword onto the page. Um, so that's the first step is the keyword research. Second is not just the back end, which most people do, but also the front end. That's the part that people miss.
Mhm.
And then the third,
Guilty.
yes, the third thing is not something people love to hear, creating content, blogs,
Mm.
podcasts, videos. If you are podcasting or blogging, put those episodes and those videos up as blog posts on your website. Get them transcribed or like summarize it in a quick blog post. Put that up as a blog post with the episode, with the video, because one, people may not know you even have a podcast. We think everyone knows I have a podcast, but they don't. So putting it on your website makes it easier for them to find. It gets traffic right to your website and not just iTunes and Spotify and whatever. And
YouTube, yep.
yeah, or YouTube. Google actually really loves websites that have dynamic content. That's what they call dynamic content. It's not just another page with a bunch of text, it has images and videos or embedded audio or, so they are like, oh, this is dynamic content. It's more interesting. It might be more valuable to users than just a Google Doc with text, basically. And so that can really be beneficial. And just talking about all the things that apply to your business, to your niche, is going to help drive more traffic. I find most of my clients and myself, yes, our main pages are all optimized, but the blog posts are what drive more traffic because they're often answering more questions. They're more niche and like specific, and it's just driving in more traffic. And you're giving people more entry points into your website, not just here's like 2 little doors into my house. Like, think of, like big office buildings or hospitals, like our homes typically have like what, 2 doors maybe and plus garage doors.
Mhm.
A hospital or a large office building has like
A mall,
a
if you're going
mall. That's a
shopping, a
great, yeah,
mall.
like
Mhm.
so many entry points. That's what blog posts do for your website, for your brand, is give people more access. And the more access points we have, the more chances people find you in Google. That gives you more traffic, more visibility, more leads, and that is how you get to spend less time on social because
Mm.
more people are finding you organically without you having to post on Instagram day after day. Like, you can use Instagram still for fun, but you don't have to feel pressured to post every single day because those reels typically stop showing up in feeds and search, after a few days, a few weeks. We want to make sure that people keep finding us because Google has a much longer shelf life. I have blog posts from 5 years ago that still bring me traffic, still bring me clients, and I don't promote them. Like, they're just out there like doing all the work for me. So
So, on that note, how long would you say it takes Google to really understand your page and understand what you're about and start serving you up for people who are searching for the things that you're posting about? Is there sort of a general time frame, or does it really depend, or is there anything you can do to speed it up? What does that look like?
So it really depends on how old your website is, and also like depends on like, have you changed your niche or your messaging or your SEO recently? So for someone like me, my domain, my website is 13 years old. So it trusts me a lot more than someone who just launched their website in January. You know, they're still literally a baby in Google's eyes. Not to say that you have to wait 13 years, that is definitely not the case. But like when I post a blog post, I typically can see it rank within a few weeks to a few months because it is much, much easier because I've built up years of trust with Google. So it's much easier for me. For new people, if it's your very first website, you bought your domain last week, I would say, depending on how many pages you have on your website, if you're blogging or doing anything like that, I would say 6 months to a year, unless you are being more aggressive with the blogging. So I sometimes
Mm.
tell people, if you, let's say your website, you've had it for like 2 or 3 years, and you're like, okay, I want more SEO. What do I need to do? I'm like, well, you need to blog, create content. They're like, ugh. I tell them, if you can start blogging for like, do a weekly blog post for like 2 to 3 months to push out more data for Google to learn about you, because every blog post is like another layer of trust. For another analogy, because I love analogies, it's like dating. I like to equate SEO with dating because you are building that trust with Google. Every blog post, every new page is like another date with Google, and they're getting to know you more and more and more. So that's kind of what and then I say, after the 3 months, if you want to back down to like 1 or 2 posts a month, that can help, or that can still be beneficial, and you don't have to do it every single week. So that's another option.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I would say that can help is also PR. So getting out on podcasts, guest posting for people, getting other websites to link to you. Backlinks don't have quite as much weight as they used to, but they are still beneficial. So basically, it's like when you launch a website, you're just out here like by yourself. You're just like in the middle of a cornfield, hanging out. And we have to like, again, Google's like, who's that over there? Like, what is she doing?
We don't trust her. We don't know her.
But then you start getting on podcasts, you start getting some like placements and links from, like I've been listed in Forbes articles, Business Insider articles, like those kinds of things. Once that starts to happen, those are like little votes of trust to Google, and they're like, okay, so like Lauren's not just this like random person with a website. She has a reputation. These other sites find her credible and trustworthy. So like, we should also consider her trustworthy. So that can also be beneficial for helping your SEO too.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned like a year, 6 months to a year. I pivoted late last year from leadership coaching to systems. And because I had been doing systems for years with, corporations, but thought leadership was better for me, but realized actually I like systems. And I had been writing a ton of blog posts when I was focused on leadership. And one of the blog posts that I wrote about icebreaker games for remote teams. Like, I wrote it probably 8 months ago, and it just recently started ranking in Google.
Yeah.
Which is funny because it's now nothing of what my website is about. Like that, I mean, I guess it could still apply to business owners if they're big enough and they have teams.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's just so funny that like I have completely moved away from leadership content. I've actually been doing blogging in my new niche and like writing new articles, but all of a sudden that one is starting to rank on like the 3rd or 4th page for games for remote teams. So it's just funny how those things suddenly start happening.
Yeah.
And it's like driving traffic to my website. And I was like, well, now it's not the right traffic. Dang it.
So you could either, just for some like advice, you could either just delete it and redirect them to something else, or you can always go back and edit the post. I mean, I wouldn't like completely just change it to something else, but see if you can figure out some kind of tie-in to
Yeah.
systems.
That's what I've been thinking of doing is
Yeah.
like, how can I tie that? And like part of what I work with clients on is running their business and managing a team. And so it
Mhm.
still kind of applies. It's
Yeah.
just not the way I wrote the blog post.
Yeah.
So, and I've been thinking about like, oh, I really need to go back and like edit that to make it more relevant to what I do now.
Yeah.
Since it's already ranking anyway,
Yeah.
I might as well. I just haven't made the time to go back and do it. So,
Yeah, but for anyone listening that like just adjusting even the intro to say like, "Hey, I help with people, and managing their teams." Icebreakers can be a great way to like that can be as simple and then maybe add another call out like at the bottom and like direct people to other blog posts or your services. Like you can always go back and edit old blog posts.
mm,
I have people ask me that quite often and I'm like, "Yes, absolutely. Go back and edit, make them better." Especially if there's anything in there from like a technical perspective that the
mm.
software has changed or something like that, you can always go back and update and change things so it's more up to date for you.
Yeah, I hate when I find a blog post and I'm like, oh, it's exactly what I'm trying to do. And then I look and it's dated from like 2022 and we're in 2024. And I'm like, well, it's 2 years old. Like, it's probably not relevant
Yeah,
anymore,
like
unfortunately, even though it's only 2 years, it can make a
mhm.
big difference in technology.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. A lot can change, especially nowadays. I feel like so many companies are rolling out like I feel like Squarespace is one that I get quite often and it's like a weekly or bi-weekly email that I get and it's like new developments. And I'm like, this is a
I
lot.
can't keep up.
I'm
I
like,
can't keep up.
I'm glad
There's
I
so
don't
much.
blog about Squarespace features because on one hand I would have a lot of ideas,
Yeah, you'd have a lot of things to talk about. That's for
but it's a
sure.
lot to keep up with. So,
What are some overlooked elements of design of a website? I know we've been talking a lot about SEO, but I know that SEO isn't just the words on the page. From what I've heard, it's also about how the page is structured and the site map and things like that. So what are some overlooked elements of the actual design of the website that can potentially impact your SEO? I know we talked about speed, but what are some other ones?
yeah. So one that is really, really overlooked and most people have no idea, which is totally fine. Again, there's no shame. If you are not a web designer, I wouldn't expect you to just like know this. But one thing is the hierarchy of your headers. So like when you are in the text boxes or whatever and you are selecting like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, those should actually go in order. And so you want to kind of, I think of it like our textbooks from school. We want to, it was like chapter 1 and then it was broken down into sections. Well, think about each of those headers. Like chapter 1 was this big and then it got a little bit smaller. It was probably like either the same color or slightly different colors to denote like, oh, this is a section, this is a subsection, this is a call out, like those kinds of things. So we want to do the same thing. Again, this doesn't have quite as much weight as it used to, but it is still important. And so the first heading on your page should be heading 1, and then
Hmm.
nothing else on that entire page should be heading 1. Heading 1 is at
Yes, I had Yoast yell at me about that
yes.
recently. It was like, you can't have more than one H1 tag, and I was like, oh, all right.
Yes.
I had to fix
So
it.
it is a one-time deal, and then heading 2, and then moving down to heading 3. Now, I will say, often within sections, it's like, our services is heading 2, and then your package names are heading 3, and then maybe you have something else under like I don't know, more calls to action or something else that needs another heading. It's not that you can't use like heading 2 again, but we just don't wanna be going from heading 4 to heading 1 again to heading like so you kind of want to structure it similar like a
Step it
textbook.
down.
Yes, like
Yeah.
step down if you can. But I often, it's like services is an H2, then if there's like a little about me, like meet the owner, that's another H2. It's a
Hmm.
new section we're denoting, so it needs a new heading. So don't feel like H2 is also only one. It gets a little confusing and messy when I'm like, do it in order, but
Tried to explain
also
it,
you
yeah.
can still but that's something with design. One, it's good for readers. It makes more sense to our brains when it kind of goes in order and has a clear hierarchy because we're not like, okay, why is this big heading again? What's like it just makes sense because that's how
Are we done with that section, or is this the
like,
same
what
section?
is
I'm so
happening?
confused.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so many things that follow that structure. Like cookbooks and regular books and textbooks, and there's so many things that follow that hierarchy. Even restaurant menus or even the big panels like at fast food restaurants, like they follow that structure. Like it makes sense to our brain. So keep that in mind. It's good for users, it's good for SEO. The other thing is images. We talked about earlier, like dynamic content that applies to your pages as well. And images can be optimized for SEO as well. And again, users love images. There are stats out there. I think it's somewhere around 80 to 90% that if there is an image of a smiling person on a page, the conversions can increase. It's like by 80% or something like it's like a really high
Wow.
percentage. Yeah.
That's
So
a big difference.
so when I'm talking about like connection matters in your website, I am talking like yes, even just a smiling image. Ideally of you, but it doesn't like obviously if you're like a bigger business and there's like a whole team of you, it doesn't necessarily have to be you, but smiling images make a huge difference rather than just stock photos of desk and hands and keyboards and whatever. Like those have
Giving me things I have to update on my website.
I mean, I'm not saying that every single picture has to be a smiling image because then it gets a little creepy because you're like
It's just you over and over
over
again,
and
like
over
smiling.
and like stock photos and you're like, why are all these people just like smiling at me? And
It's getting creepy.
yeah, so the flat lays and the desk and the keyboards, they have a place too, but don't forget those smiling images. That goes to the users, helps with people, feeling comfortable and that kind of thing. But optimizing those images, because image SEO is very much a thing. Now, does it help a ton? I feel like images help more with SEO on blog posts, especially if
Mm.
they are images that you're doing like infographics or things like that, but it still contributes to the overall SEO. So typically it's not what I recommend, it's what Google recommends. But
Our Google overlords
yes,
recommend.
before you upload a picture, you want it to have your keywords in the image. So instead of just image 123, you want it to have like virtual assistant and that's it. And like
Mm.
you can do variations of that, like virtual assistant at desk, virtual assistant, for women. Like it can be just some variation of your keywords. And that's where I feel like are people really going to search virtual assistant and then going to the images tab in Google? Like, not really. So, but it helps with your page SEO because all of those factors are working together to build up the page SEO. So even if you're like, no, why is someone going to be searching for like virtual
The stock image of a virtual assistant.
yeah, like that's not what they're going to be doing. So, then once you upload your platform, your website platform should give you a space. I don't know of any that don't, that says image alt text.
I
This,
was going to ask about that.
yes,
Yep.
this is mostly for website accessibility. So people who use screen readers to navigate through websites. If your images don't appear or if they can't see them, it will read that alt text. So a lot of people make the mistake that they will just keyword stuff this and they'll be like virtual assistant, time management, inbox management, like, whatever. That's not what this is for. This is literally to describe the photo. I do say if you can try to sneak in a keyword. So instead of just like woman at desk, it would be like a virtual assistant at desk or like web designer holding laptop or like woman, virtual assistant with podcast microphone or, like instead of just woman or Lauren, it would be your title or the keyword associated with that particular page. So
Okay.
it's still a little bit SEO friendly, but we still want it to describe the, what's actually in the image. And you don't have to, like, sometimes I've had people be like, do I need to, like, be really specific about, like, the color of the walls and the color of the desk? And I'm like, I mean, not really. I mean, you could, if you want, if it's like literally just you at a desk and you're just smiling at the camera, sure, you could be like virtual assistant at white desk or something. But like, no, you don't have to. You can just say desk. Like, that's fine. Um,
Yeah. To
so
get the gist of it.
yeah, you get the gist. Um, and then the last thing I will say with design, this is a slightly more intangible kind of thing, but Google pays attention to how long people are on your website. So let's say
Mm-hmm.
you are ranking number 1 for time management and you're like, "Yes, I finally got to spot number 1." And you start seeing like more and more traffic, but then you see your bounce rate is really high. And you're
Mm.
like, "I'm not getting a lot of clicks. People are leaving." Um you can even look at this in your Google Analytics in the Explore tab. You can see the path. And so Google will show you like
Mm-hmm.
a flow chart of, okay, they went to the homepage and then 500 went to the homepage and then 162 went to the about page and 39 went to the services page and whatever. And you're like, wait, but what happened to the other, like, 300
They just kept
people?
dropping
Yeah,
off. Yeah.
they're dropping off. Over time, if the percentage of people leaving immediately gets too high, Google was like, there's a lot of people not
Something's weird here.
like, I don't
Something
think
bad is happening.
I mean, they're going there for time management, but then they're leaving, so they're not finding what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So, it's not that they're just gonna, like, erase you from Google, but they might be like, maybe, like, just time management is not the right keyword. Maybe they see that you are talking about, like, some other specific niche of time management or something. They might still keep you ranking high for that keyword, but bump you down lower to see, like, okay, well, is this whatever other website better for what people are looking for when it comes to time management? So that's where
Yeah.
sometimes with the SEO and your keywords and how specific you get with your keywords can be beneficial because it might be a little bit less traffic, but it's the better traffic because we want to get in front of the right people at the right time, not
Yes. Not
just
just any old people.
anybody. Because over time, if too many people leave, Google's like, something's fishy about Lauren. We don't know like why everyone's leaving. So we might need to bump her down. That's not what people
Right.
are looking for. So
Yeah.
I brought that up because keeping people on your site, part of that is design. Part of that is
Mm.
how good your website looks. Is it easy to navigate? Is it easy to read the stuff? Or is your text too small and too hard? It's a like light gray color that we can't read. Design is part of it because it helps make a good user experience. It keeps people engaged. They like being on the site. I mean, we've all been on websites where you're like, what is happening? There's 15,000 pop-ups and I can't read the font and like I just everything is happening and we don't enjoy the experience. Other websites you're like, wow, this is so like nice and pretty and then sometimes there's just websites where you're like, okay, like this is clean and easy and I can get to where I need to go. Like I'm not going to sit here and like sip my coffee and just stare at it, but it's at least nice to be on and I don't want to like gouge my eyes out. So
Right.
design is one of those things that helps with keeping people on the website and not just immediately leaving because it's overwhelming, it's
Painful.
cluttered, it's ugly. So, yeah.
Okay. So then our, podcast is all about process. And so my last question for you is, which may lead to more questions. So I guess I shouldn't say it's the last question because who knows where we'll go with this. But how often, other than creating content, should business owners be updating their website, changing things around, making, tweaks here and there? Should they kind of like build it and leave it alone? Should they be constantly adding pages? Like, what's your recommendation for best practices around that?
So, this can kind of have like two answers. Definitely, definitely do not just build it and leave it alone. Please don't do that. Lauren.
Maybe that happened. I'm just saying, hypothetically, maybe our
Hypothetically.
listeners have that problem.
So I would say I'll start with the like kind of easier option. Bare minimum of what I would recommend is checking in on your website like once per quarter, just to like
Okay.
make sure everything's working. Double check all your links. There are broken link checkers out there that like it's a free website. You just put your domain in and it will be like, whoop, do 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 do, like these. And it sometimes it's not like you're like, well, I didn't change anything. I haven't touched my website for 3 months. Like, why would anything be broken? You would be surprised how many like podcasts disappear, and so you've linked to that person on your press page, and they up and deleted their podcast. And now you have a broken link, and those kinds of things. Or you just link to any kind of feature like that, and you're like, oh well,
Or someone else's blog post or
yeah.
someone else's website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I would say bare minimum, like check on it every 3 months to make sure everything's working. Review your prices, your packages. Often people forget that, like, oh, I had this. Or I've been to websites where it's like, this person has 60,000 Instagram followers. I'm like, oh, like, let me go check out their website. And the like on the homepage, it's like events coming up, July 2021.
I've seen that. Yep.
And I'm like, can we just have like a little bit more attention to detail?
I mean,
Like,
all you have to do is take it off. Like,
like,
you don't even have to change
just
it.
delete, hide, turn it into a draft, like something. I don't think we need to, when I say like check on things every quarter, I'm not saying we need to like change the colors, rewrite all the copy, anything like that. But like add new client testimonials, check your prices, check your forms that they're working, those kinds of things. Now, in an ideal world, what I would love if I had a magic wand and I could make everyone do this is, and not, I wouldn't say this, is like a forever thing, but doing things where you check your analytics, you run heat maps on your website to see where are people clicking, where are they scrolling, what are they doing on your website, and making changes according to that. I had
Okay.
my copy totally rewritten in May because I don't do copy. I can like help with it, but I don't write it. So I had all of my pages redone. Love my copywriter. I have worked with her for many, many years. And, redid the pages and everything, set up the heat maps, refresh them, to track, to see what things were doing. And we had kind of expanded my homepage at my own desire. This is not her. And so that bumped my little service call out, like my services with the little boxes. I'm like, here's how I can help with you. Was bumped down a little bit lower on the page. Not at the bottom. It wasn't the last thing, but it was like maybe halfway.
It wasn't top of the fold.
Yeah. And people were not scrolling to it. They were not like, and if I had just updated the copy and left it as is, that could have been,
you would have never known.
I would have never known. It would have been detrimental. I wouldn't have, and yes, they were still clicking like in navigation and other things. They weren't just leaving, but they weren't even seeing that information. And so you have to pay attention to the data to see where people are going, what people are clicking on. I mean, I hear people all the time, they're like, oh, like no one's booking this service, no one's doing that. And I'm like, well, how many people are going to that page? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, so let's look at your analytics. And they're like, okay, I had 2 people in May go to that page. And I'm like, well, okay. So
there's your problem.
2 people, and that's not very much because average conversion rates on websites are 1 to 2%. So it's a very low conversion. And so we need to get more traffic to those pages. So I'm like, so then of course we kind of reverse engineer it to like, are you promoting it enough? Do you, on social, on email, is it visible in your navigation? Is it visible on the homepage? Like, or is this a hidden page that you just kind of like added to the website and it
didn't tell anyone how to get to it?
Didn't tell anyone. It's linked in the footer, like anything like that. And you're like, I wonder why no one has gone to the page.
And I wonder why no one is buying.
Yeah. So In an ideal world, I would also love people to pay more attention to the analytics and the data because I think that helps us make better decisions. It also
Mm.
ties in with your blogs, it ties in with your podcast, it ties in with Instagram because you can see in your analytics, oh, I had 5 people come to my website from Instagram last month. Okay, so something on Instagram is not working. Like, then thinking about like, okay, well, how many times did I actually have a call to action or like a link in my stories or, those kinds of things? Okay, maybe it's just a matter of needing to do that more. Maybe it's your call to actions are not good enough. Maybe it's your messaging. Like, obviously, there's a lot of things, but having that data can help you understand what changes need to be made on your website so that it is actually impacting your business and helping your business and not just being this like static brochure that just collects dust and doesn't do anything.
Digital dust,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, Jess, thank you so much. This has been so helpful for me and I think very helpful for my listeners as well.
Yeah.
I have a laundry list of things that I now have to go check on my website.
I'm sorry for giving you
Uh,
homework.
it's okay. It's homework. It's funny. Before we got on, I was actually like, oh, I need to go do some things on the website. And I'd started making a list. So now I just have more things to add to the
There
list,
you go.
which is good because, it's important that
Yes.
it's all
Yes.
updated, especially for that traffic I'm getting from that random blog post from a year ago. So, if people are interested in learning more about you, connecting with you, where can they do that?
Yeah. I am very easy to find. Jess Creatives, plural. Sometimes people forget the S on the end. JessCreatives.com, at Jess Creatives on Instagram, Threads. I'm on YouTube, all basically everywhere. You can find me. And
And
so
I'll put all those links in the description and all that good
yeah.
stuff for everybody.
Yeah. So yeah, you can find me pretty much everywhere.
And did you have a free gift that you wanted to give to our audience today?
Yes, I have the backlink guide for helping you get ideas of where to get more backlinks. So this helps with your
Mm.
visibility, gets your brand out there in front of more audiences. It also helps you get more SEO and backlinks and kind of just people get overwhelmed because again, if you're not a web designer, if you don't do SEO, you're like, what is this? What are you talking about? So yeah, the backlink boss guide will give you some ideas on how to get started with that and hopefully get you some more press.
All right, great. And I will make sure I have that link in the description as well. Thank you so much for being here today. Like I said, I learned a lot. I think my listeners learned a lot. And I really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
All right, everyone. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.